Hey everyone, Genome here, coming to you my next How to Fix video for Marvel Strike Force. And today's subject will be no surprise to basically anyone in the game, especially fans of the movies and all. And that is how to fix Iron Man. The most disappointing legendary in the game? Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet. One of the most disappointing characters in the game, that's also a very safe bet. Even when this guy was first released, I mean, he was pretty bad then. Yeah, his ult did some pretty big damage for the time, but man, he is like nowhere on the radar to be seen anymore, and he's just awful, in dire need of rework. And so I had some ideas here to do just that. Now, full disclosure, I know a lot of people want to see like the Hulkbuster armor, and they want to see him like, transform into like the tank. I'm more of the opinion to just let that be a separate character, but I do have some more ideas to make him much more of a leader type character, as well as legendary. And so that's how I'm going to kind of steer his kit. So it's not going to be the Hulkbuster armor or nothing like that, or no huge upgrades to his armor per se, but just things that make him a team member other than just a damage dealer. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first off, let's talk about his basic. What would I change? Well, it's called Repulsor Blast, right? Doesn't repulse anything. All it does is do damage and has a very small chance to chain. Pretty terrible basic. So my idea for this is, since it's called Repulsor Blast, that's his main weapons that he uses anyway, I would say keep the damage right here. I don't care about the chain part. You can kick that away if you want, but it, as well as doing the damage, it also repulses the opponent 2 spaces toward the center. So think of it like a mini Magneto, right? Just for one character. This will come into play a little bit later with what I'm kind of going to propose for him. But it's just that. It's just something simple that would help him on just about any team, but even on Power Armor. Because things like War Machine's basic that hits adjacent, this would actually push it into range, so now he's hitting 4 things possibly. There's several instances where this could be very good. If you're still using Vision's special, it will hit adjacent as well. So yeah, you're just gonna, it's the same thing as the Magneto effect, basically. You're just adding a lot more stuff into the smaller space, so more adjacent attacks hit. So that's it. That's all I would change, but I think it's a pretty big change, and I think it's kind of flavorful. I mean, that's the case. That's kind of what they do, right, in the comics anyway. So that's that. So let's talk about his special. His special is, all right, it stinks in some ways, like when you're playing as him, but like when you're playing against him, like in a PvE environment, the AI always leads with this. So blinding Iron Man does no good because this attack is unavoidable. But I want to make this, I'm not going to change the flavor of this too much, but I am going to make it more functional as far as group disruption and control goes. And once again, this is going to kind of tie in with his whole leadership premise, right? So what I would change here is, all I would do is adds stun to the primary target. So it does the same thing it always does. This text will not change except to add stuns primary target. That's it. It gives him some basic utility. So now we've already started moving him from the straight damage dealer role to more of a almost controller role, which makes sense because his damage is more like controller-like than it is, blaster-like nowadays. So yeah, let him stun the primary target, and then everything else remains the same here. And hey, he's got utility now. Go figure. Okay, so now for his ult. Not going to be huge changes here. I'll leave the damage numbers as they are. And of course, like with all these characters, he needs a big stat boost. You got to double his stats or something at this point in the game, or he's hopelessly left behind. But just, we're saying in a vacuum that these things are going to be happening. But for his ult, I want it to attack primary and adjacent targets for the same amount of damage. So once again, you can be setting this up with his basic for a really big ult. Because this does semi-decent damage, single target, not as much nowadays, but now you start doing this to a group of 3 or 4 characters, it gets a little bit dangerous, right? So you really got to start thinking, do I need to kill Iron Man first, you can't just save him for last. And once again, a Power Armor, like, So do I go to either of the buffers, or do I go to War Machine to stop the big nuke, or do I stop Iron Man, who also has a big nuke? Tough to say, with the changes I'm laying out, Iron Man might be a more priority target than War Machine. So, but you can only just have to play him on Power Armor. Of course, you can play him on Wave 1 Avengers or Avengers team, or just about anywhere, really. And he fits pretty well with tech characters, so he can be a lot more universal with a change like this. And heck, you might throw him on Brotherhood, because once again, Magneto's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Or maybe as X Factor, he could be a 5th on X Factor at this point, because once again, Polaris bunches everyone together, and he helps do any stragglers. So that's all he would change on his ultimate attack, is to just have it hit adjacent. Alright, so now for his passive. I got several changes I would like to make here. And the first and most basic of these is whenever an ally crits, attack that enemy for 200% damage. That's it. It's basically almost like a Sabretooth assist, right? I'm not sure if he should move the character with the assist. That would probably be a little too overpowered, to be honest with you. So I would probably entertain just leaving that off of there. But basically, whenever an ally crits, attack that enemy for 200% damage, right? He's a leader, he's helping the team, right? And he's supposedly a damage dealer. Let's start cranking his damage up somehow, even if it's passively. Okay, so the second part of this, on turn, he would have a 50% chance to summon a healing satellite that heals the entire team for 20% of Iron Man's health. So your typical healer will have some button they can push, usually a special, that will heal the team for 20%. I like this to be done passively on Iron Man, but it won't go off every turn of his. 50% chance. So sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. But you don't have to give up an attack or completely change one of his abilities to put a heal in there. So, I mean, right now, on most of the teams he's on, there's no way of really healing. I mean, there's a little bit from Cap on Wave 1 Avengers, and it's more like a barrier mechanic, right, for the Power Armor. So this would allow some healing to come in, and once again, it's a healing kind of thing, and it's very fitting for a leader type's character. So yeah, on turn, 50% chance to summon a healing satellite that heals an entire team for 20% of Iron Man's health. Okay, and lastly, this is once again getting to more survivability. So in the whole Power Armor scenario, like you're building towards the big nuke, which happens about turn 3, right? So, and in order to get there, you gotta hope and pray a lot that, like, because rescue goes down so bloody easy. I always forget her name. Ironheart is a little more resilient, but still, even she can go down. So if you get either one of those down, the big nuke attack is not nearly as scary. So in order to buy a little bit of time, hopefully, I would also have another on-turn passive ability. And this is almost Doom-like in a way. It'd be on turn, summon one Proto Suit with taunt and defense up. So basically, it's almost like a Doombot, or maybe like a Kingpin bodyguard, but with better health, and stats. Maybe make it like a clone of Mr. Sinister's, that it's like maybe a 664, whatever, with say 150,000 health or something, but it's got taunt and defense up as it spawns on his turn. So it just helps so much to take the focus off the rest of the team, to let whichever team he's on get rolling. And once again, it would make Iron Man a very priority target. It would probably make him the priority target at this point, at least on Power Armor. Maybe even on Wave 1 Avengers, to be totally honest, but good luck getting to him with all the taunts they have on that team. So less useful on the Wave 1, much more useful on the Power Armor, and it really might help them turn the corner somewhat and give them the time to get going. Once again, it sounds super strong, but I don't know. I think you can still beat that. Most of the teams nowadays would probably shred that suit anyway, but rather than making him just the standard, let's make him the Hulkbuster armor, let's just give him something else. He summons in a robotic, or like a remote-controlled suit that taunts on spawn, and maybe gives your team another hit or two of breathing time to get rolling. So, what say you? That was my ideas for Iron Man, to try to fix this really sorry excuse for Legendary and give him some more both thematic flavor and actual versatility. Just a quick recap, for his basic Repulsor Blast, I would just keep all stats the same and modifiers, but have it push whichever target he hits 2 spaces toward the center of the board. That's it. For Rocket Barrage, all I would add is a bit of text that says stun primary target. For his ultimate Unibeam, I would have it hit primary target and adjacent targets for the same big damage, right? So once again, making things kind of dangerous if you're letting him like push people around the field. And finally, for his passive, there's several things I changed. First off, when an enemy ally crits, he attacks that enemy for 200% damage, just a standard basic repulsor blast attack. On turn, he'll have a 50% chance to summon a healing satellite that heals the entire team for 20% of Iron Man's health. I don't want to make that tech characters, so he could be useful on other teams. So that was what that one was. And for the last piece of the change on his passive, I would say on turn, he'll summon 1 Proto Suit with taunt and defense up, thus buying whatever team he's on a little more time to get going. So yeah, what are your ideas for changing Iron Man? He is one of the most reviled characters in the game, mostly because he's such a popular character, at least in the movies and in the community in general, and he's just been done a great disservice in this game, and he certainly doesn't deserve his legendary tag as is. So yeah, what changes would you make to him? What ideas do you have? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Until next time, this is Genome, just doing his own upgrades of Mr. Stark's suit. Out.